What is up, guys? We are back. Long and behold, Trent and Alec are here. What's up, guys?
We'll shake the rust off, but we're back.
Yeah, man.
Happy to
Glad
be
to,
back.
yeah, man. Likewise, we're glad to kick off this college football season again. We're partnering with Five Reasons Sports. Alec has his FSU jersey. He hasn't washed in 2 years, so football is back, man. I can't wait. A lot to discuss this year. We finally have the 12-team playoff. We have a lot of storylines. We're going to talk about the three main schools. We're going to talk about the three Florida schools, I should say. We're going to talk a little about the playoff, our playoff predictions, our Heisman pick, all that good stuff. With that said, Alec, let's get right into it, man. Let's start with the jersey on your that you're wearing. Let's start with the week zero game, man. Look, FSU is playing. They had a very good year last year. Let's be honest, right? If Jordan Travis plays, they're in the playoff game. I don't think we can even question at this point that was the reason why they didn't get in. I don't care that they lost to Georgia 52 to not to 7 or whatever the hell the score was. I don't think anyone cares about that. I mean, we all know the story as to why that happened. Most of them didn't play. Look, it's a new year, right? You got DJ. I can't pronounce his last name. I'm just gonna call him DJU. Um, look, man, this guy's taking advantage of the NIL, right? He's doing a good job. He's a pretty good quarterback. You guys did lose a lot of starters. I'm gonna leave it at that and give you the floor, man. What's your predictions for FSU week zero and going throughout the season? And we're gonna give our playoff picks later, but if you think they're gonna make the playoff, go ahead. Feel free to say it.
Well, I think I'll start with the last thing you said. Given that this year's first year with 12 teams, very different landscape, and I think that more or less the top two or three teams in every conference, every power conference, I think will have a chance to make it. If it if it plays out that way, maybe the SEC will get a couple more teams. But as far as does FSU have a chance to make the playoff? I believe so. I think that you know coming off of you spoke about the playoff snub, which I never really got a chance to give my take on camera. But you know what? The past is the past. We've moved on as a base, and we're just looking forward to this season and kind of proving our worth on the field. I think that is a good thing. As horrible as it was, it's a good thing for us moving into this season. A lot of motivation, a lot of people to prove wrong, and I think that for the people that we lost in the draft, which were a lot of people, most of our talented players on offense, our playmakers, and then a lot of the defensive line and defensive players as well. So I think that those players that got drafted, almost all of them were transfers. And
Yeah.
just like those transfers came in and stepped up, I think that these guys that we got in to replace them will be able to, come in and fill the void and kind of keep moving in this system that has been, rolling for 4 years now. We're going into Mike Norvell's fifth year. And, I believe in the coach and we've done a good job of kind of holding on to our staff over these last couple of years, barring a couple of assistants. So overall, look for the season. I think that we're definitely going to be one of the competitive teams in college football. I don't know where we're going to end up at the end of the year. A lot of that will kind of come out. We'll see how we come out in week zero. And, with this game against Georgia Tech, I think that first game of the season, you know, all hands on deck. Any any team playing in their first game of the season has a chance to either make a big name for themselves or completely screw up and have to re strategize their season because of it. So there's a lot of big games in week one, but fortunately FSU got a game in week zero, and we played Georgia Tech, who came off a good year, relatively speaking, with their head coach, Brent Key, who's been there. I think this will be his second year, maybe his third year. And he did a good job. Obviously, had a couple big wins last year. One of them against Miami, we all remember. And I think that they have a good team. They are bringing a lot of guys back from last year. Haynes King was a good quarterback for them.
I was about
Uh,
to mention him. I think he's a real sleeper candidate to win some pretty big games this year. I'm actually very high on Haynes King. I
I
think
think
Georgia
that they're
Tech
going
could
to
be a
be
lot
one of the
better.
better teams in the ACC,
Yeah.
and they got a couple of receivers as well that are coming back. So
Yeah.
it'll be an interesting game. I could see it, being close, especially there in the first half. And ultimately, I expect the Knowles to come out and win the game. But uh, like I said, anything can happen, and it's the first game of the year. So just got to hope we can come out and just focus on our game plan and kind of dominate. That's the
Yeah.
plan.
Alec, I think FSU was obviously a very good team last year, right? I think you guys lost a lot of starters. I think it's going to be a lot tougher year for FSU. I don't know if they can sneak into the playoff. I think DJ's very good. I just think it's a lot to overcome what they lost. Obviously, Norvell's a great coach. I think they'll definitely be fighting for that, 8, 9, 10 spot. It's going to be interesting. But Trent, what do you have to say about that?
So I leave the most of the opinions to the resident Noel over there, but I will say that I think of all the years that Norvell has been in Tallahassee, this is the most going to be the most telling season in terms of how good of a coach he is.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously, he did a great job last year. There's really no disputing that. But people are always going to say, they're going to point at the roster. They're going to talk about Keon Coleman. They're going to talk about Jordan Travis. They're going to talk about Benson. They're going to talk about all these different Fisk. All these different guys. And now they're gone, and it's a kind of a brand new team, new quarterback, new running back, new receivers, brand new guys on the defense. I mean, it's a new team, and I think that when you look at this roster compared to last year, you think just on paper that they lost a lot, but if Norvell can come out and have a similar season compared to what he did last season, I mean, I think that would be amazing. So, I mean,
Yeah.
if Florida State can come out, win 10 games, 11 games again this year with a less talented roster, in my opinion, than they had last season, I think that is the true sign of Mike Norvell's supremacy in the ACC. But we'll see. So I think this is a key indicating season for Norvell, considering how much they lost and what they can do. I think DJU is a huge question mark in my eyes. I think that uh, everywhere he's been, with the exception of that very first year at Clemson, he's been up and down. I'd say he had a better year at
Oregon
Oregon
State.
State
Yeah.
last year, but still he wasn't anything spectacular. So if he ends up having a good season this year, I mean the common denominator all points towards Norvell. Um, but in terms of week zero, I know Georgia Tech is maybe a little underrated. I think Haynes King is actually a pretty good quarterback. Um, but I do expect Florida State to win that game by more than one possession. I know it's in Dublin. Like Alex said, it may be a little shaky to start. It's week zero, new quarterback, maybe an offense that's going to try to find their legs at some point early in the season. But I just think that they're just a more dominant team than Georgia Tech, and I think they'll win by at least 10.
Yeah, I agree with that. Everything you said. Look, I think DJ is pretty damn good. Last year, Oregon State, he had some games where you're like, what the hell is this? And the other games, he threw for 9 touchdowns and no picks. And you saw he was the number one high school prospect coming out, right? So he's up and down for sure. But Alec, I'll give you the last word on FSU, man.
Yeah, well, it's definitely a big hole to fill, big shoes to fill. We had a great season, last 2 seasons from our quarterback, Jordan Travis, and the impact that he had was like, beyond what usually one player's impact would be on a team. At least for us, it was. So, it's going to be hard for DJ to fill those shoes. I do think that, from a physical attribute standpoint, he's taller, he's more built for quarterback, he's more of a passer. He was the number one quarterback coming out of high school. And, I haven't, like Trent said, I really haven't seen anything in the past other than, his first year where I was like, oh, this guy is a threat. I pretty much considered him as a liability when he was at Clemson in those later years. And at Oregon State, I saw a couple of his games, but he really didn't do what they wanted him to do at Clemson. So you got to hope that he's a 5th year, 6 year guy, and he's trying to make a name for himself and get his name out there in the draft. And considering that Norvell was able to turn Jordan Travis into what he became, I think that exposure to some coaching,
Yeah.
that maybe Dabo Swinney couldn't provide, I think might be able to help. So I like DJ, and I think we'll be okay with him. But as far as receivers, we got transfers, running back, same deal, and these are all talented guys. Roy L. Williams, Malik Benson, uh, offense and defense. So it's a different era in college football. It's not as much about building your program as it is just like filling the voids as we've seen with all these teams.
Yeah.
So I'm relying more on the system that has been built over these last 4 years.
Yeah.
And
I want to
we're going to
I
be
want
able to.
I want to piggyback real quick off what he said. Talking about Jordan Travis, and I, like he said, people don't realize that like just how good Jordan Travis was before he got hurt last season. Like he was arguably a Heisman Trophy winner, not just
I no, I
contender.
completely
He
I
was a
completely agree
Heisman
with that.
Trophy
Yeah.
winner before he got hurt. And I mean, he was just as impactful as you could say Jameis Winston was arguably in 2013. I mean, they they were just that good. I mean, Jordan Travis was unstoppable before he got hurt. And now, like Alex said, he had DJU's got some shoes to fill. And I mean, the last thing that can happen to FSU's offense is become one dimensional. I know, and everyone knows they're going to have a great ground attack. They did last year. They have Roy Dell Williams this year. He was going to be good. But they have to create a threat for defenses to throw the ball because if they become one-dimensional and they can, if the passing game is ineffective, teams are just going to load the box, and that will be problematic going forward. I've seen it way too many times. So DJU has to become a factor in the air, or else that offense could just implode because you do not want to see them go one-dimensional.
Yeah. Well said, guys. All right, on to our next Florida team here. That is the Florida Gators. Look, they didn't have that great of a year last year. I'm going to be brutally honest. Of all my over-unders, I think the under 4.5 wins is the best bet on the books right now. It's plus money. And it's not really a credit as how bad. I think the Gators actually have a decent team. I think Mertz has proved himself to be a decent quarterback. Look, he's not going to fly off the charts, right? But I think he does the job. He's fundamental. He's the Alex Smith of college football, in my opinion, right? Doesn't take too many heat checks down the field. He's going to do the job. This is more credibility to their schedule. I think it's by far the toughest schedule in college football. They have an absolute um, gridiron of a schedule. I mean, after Sanford, it just looks for the exception of Sanford and UCF, you can make a case they can lose every one of those games. I do think the Canes going into the Swamp is going to be a tough test for them. I do think they will prevail, the Canes, but um, look, you guys both went to school there, right? You guys,
No,
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 my bad.
no.
Alec went to school there. He knows what it's like. But we'll start with you first, Trent. What's your expectations for the Gators? And there's a lot of rumors going on that this might be Billy Napier. He might not even last the season. I don't know if that's going to be the case, in my opinion. But what do you think about all that?
I mean, first of all, I'm not going to make any UM predictions. I'm going to save that for a couple weeks because
Mhm.
that's a whole analysis within itself. But um, when I look at UF's roster, I mean, there's a few guys that are notable. I mean, Montrell Johnson's really good, even though he is hurt. I don't know if he's going to play week 1, but Montrell Johnson's really good. Jason Marshall's really good. Both of those guys are seniors. Eugene Wilson's really good. He's a sophomore. Elijah Badger's really good. He's a senior. What's his name? Tyreek Sapp is very good, defensive end, junior. But I don't know. Outside of those main guys, UF on paper, I mean, I think they're a very middle of the pack team. Mertz showed last season that maybe he's not as bad as people thought he was, but still, to me, Mertz is a very run of the mill quarterback. I mean, he's not someone that strikes fear into my eyes whatsoever. And on top of that, going into their schedule, I mean, it's just hell on earth. I mean, I'd be lying to you if I said I didn't already bet the under on the 4.5. And honestly, it doesn't even have to do with the UF. It's just a ridiculously hard schedule.
Exactly.
Um,
That's my point.
I
Yes.
mean, they have the absolute gauntlet as their last, what is it, 6 games? And I'm just gonna pull it up now. I mean, football schedule. They play. Oh my God. Georgia, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, Florida State to end the
I
season.
mean,
I
it's
mean,
unbelievable, dude.
that is unbelievable. They're going to go 0-5. Unless something miraculous happens, I think they're going to go 0-5 in those last, almost guaranteed those last 5 weeks. And again, it doesn't have to do with Florida. They're playing 5 good teams. I mean, it's and then to add to that, it's not exactly fair for Napier because obviously it's not a good look if they win 4 games or less, even 5 games or less. But when you consider the schedule of this, if he can win 5 games this year, you can't fire him, in my opinion. You can't.
Yeah.
It's just not fair. It's not fair to him. Um, Obviously, combining this season, a 5-win season this year with the previous two, the win percentage maybe isn't that great. But I mean, no coach is coming out of the schedule alive with this team. It's just not possible. So, um,
It's not.
I think I
I
think
don't
I
think
think
that's true. I don't think that's true.
you think there's another coach that can take this Florida team and win
It's a
7 games?
tough.
8 games?
Yeah.
No,
I think
no way.
I disagree. I disagree. With this roster right now today, I'd be shocked if they won more than six.
Yeah, no, there's no way. I
Now,
mean, I don't know
and I'll say this: the one thing that the Gators have going for them, they have one of the best home field environments in college football. Maybe they'll get
for
one
sure.
surprise win, but I'd be I just simply disagree that there's any coach out there that can get more than 7 wins with his Gators
I
team.
I agree. So I don't know what his take is, but
I just
he
think
can.
that they they still have an SEC team. They're still the Florida Gators. I know they haven't recruited as well with Napier, but they've gotten transfers. I don't think it's not an elite roster. I understand that, but they got Mertz coming back this year. He wasn't bad last year. He was like, in his own way, very good for them. And
Game manager.
they have running back, they have receivers. They ran the ball well last year. I think that they're not going to be. I don't think that they're going to go and win 8, 9 games, but they can win 6 games this year. They could
Alec,
win.
I think the only legitimate games they can truly win is Sanford, UCF.
UM. They could win UM.
I agree with that.
Saying
UM.
guaranteed wins. You're not saying games they can win. There are games
Yeah,
that they
I
can
think
win.
I think Sanford and UCF are probably guaranteed wins, right? They're
I would
both.
not say UCF is a guaranteed win.
No, UCF is not a guaranteed win.
They have McLean, right, at quarterback still.
They
KJ
have
Jefferson,
KJ
UCF's quarterback.
Jefferson.
Okay, we can debate the schedule another day, but it just looks brutal, man. I mean, it's
I get that they're projected to win 4 games, so I understand that that's the line. And I think that if what Napier has to do, okay, just going back to the beginning of your of this segment, I think that he's in a position where he has to win his job. I think that it's like pretty much guaranteed that it's gone after this year. It's unfortunate with the schedule, but we're talking about Florida Gators, talking about SEC football, and nobody cares about, oh, it's not fair. We should give them. It's like we want to win, we want to compete. Like it's a different time, and especially in the SEC, nobody cares. If they win 4 games, he's gone, regardless of the schedule. Like so, he
Well,
has to
maybe, but I'm just saying that's not right.
whatever. I mean, yeah, I agree with you. It's not right, but that's not the way things go around here. But also, to save his job, he has to win 6, 7 games. I think he could do that. They have a chance to win a lot of games they play at home. They play Kentucky at home, UCF at home, A&M at home. That's Mike Elko's first year there, is to clean up, the Jimbo mess. So Miami at home. So they have a chance to win these games.
They
And I
have
think
six.
they,
They have 6 winnable games.
yeah, and I could see them winning 6 games. They could do it. But if he
They can't
doesn't
win
do
more than
that,
6.
if they don't win 6 games, I think if they're not a 500 team in a bowl game, I think that he's probably done.
Yeah.
He's the hottest seat in college football.
I mean, yeah. I mean,
I'm
look,
not gonna disagree with
it, it's the only reason I give them maybe a slimmer of a chance to win 6 games is because they have a decent amount of home games, but the Swamp is a very tough environment. We saw it last year, right? We counted them out a lot of the games, and you were on top of it. You said, "Listen, man, the Swamp is one of the hardest places to play in college football," and they've proved that a couple times where they upset some teams. I believe they beat what, Utah, right? Utah was one of the games they beat last year. Everyone thought they were going to run them over. They won that game. It was unbelievable. Um, so I think that's really the only testament as to why I think they have a small chance to maybe come out with 6 or 7 wins. I don't. I think Billy Napier hasn't been really given a fair shot yet. I mean, after what, one and a half year, he's already in the hot seat. I think the schedule definitely doesn't help him. It's definitely the wrong time to have the schedule for him. But if he wins 5 or 6 games, I think he gets one more shot, one more year next year. We'll see. I think we all agree though that they're not going to make the playoff this year, so we we
No.
can we can skip that.
And if they do, then wow, that'd really be something.
Yeah, it would be. We'll come back to this pod week 1, and then Napier will give us a testament to that. So, all right. Any last words on UF?
Like I said, six winnable games. That means they'd have to win all of their winnable games to get to 6 because they're not going to win one of those non-winnable games. It's just not happening. And another thing about the Swamp is, like, obviously come week 1, it's going to be one of the toughest environments to play in. But I mean, Alec can tell me if I'm wrong, but I think if as the season progresses and Florida is losing, I think the Swamp effect becomes a little less. Like, for example, week
You're
1 will
right.
be
Yeah,
packed,
absolutely.
but week 10, if they have 6 or 7 losses, that impact will not be the same.
Yeah.
So that's another thing to keep in mind about the Swamp.
Hmm. All right, guys. And like I said, guys, listening at home, we'll talk about more of these teams as the season goes on. We only have so much time. We're gonna switch to UM. Listen, man, we didn't know the story about Cam Ward. First, he was entering the NFL draft, then he was, and then he was again, then he wasn't, and ultimately he landed with UM and signed a pretty nice NIL deal. They move on from Tyler Van Dyke. Personally, Trent, I think the timeline has gone up 2 years for Mario Cristobal with this college football expansion. We hear it every year, man. UM's going to win it all. Let's just have them make the playoff and go from there. I think there's a pathway for them to make the playoff this year. I'm not going to say they're going to win it all. I still think there's a couple holes they need to fill. I think Cam Ward is a very good get for this team. He's probably the best quarterback they've had in the last 20 years.
It
Uh,
hasn't played it down yet, so I'm not going to tell you that.
uh, I mean, he was very good at Washington State last
Yeah.
year.
Yep.
He was a big reason why they won a lot of those games. I'll give you the floor first, Trent. Go ahead, man.
So kind of, you know how I said, like, even a good coach couldn't get Florida 6 wins. Well, the complete opposite exists for Miami. A good coach would have this team in the playoff. I just don't know if UM has that coach. I think in terms of the roster, I think this is a revamped roster. It is, dare I say, significantly better than the roster last year in terms of their transfer acquisitions with Cam Ward, Damian Martinez, Sam Brown, Simeon Barrow, Elijah Austin. I can go on and on about all the transfers they got. But on paper, I think it's a really formidable team. I think that the offensive line is still good. They have a quarterback that is supposed to be damn good. He won ACC preseason player of the year. They're getting a running back that was arguably a top 2 or 3 running back in the Big 12 last year.
Very, very good running back. Yes.
So many weapons at receiver with 2 1,000-yard receivers returning last year and a good transfer in Sam Brown from Houston. On top of that, defensive line, especially the edge rushers, is absolutely loaded. And again, on paper, the edge rushers it's one of the best units in college football, in my opinion, on paper. I'm going to keep saying that. But on paper, it can only take you so far. We've seen it a million times, especially with this Miami program. So I really don't know what to expect. I mean, I've seen Mario flop 2 seasons in a row, and you can make the case that his rosters weren't as good or yada yada, but he still lost to inferior teams like Georgia Tech last year, Mid Tennessee State the year before. Like, I can go on and about that too. So I don't know what we're going to see with UM come week 1. I want to be hopeful because again, Cam Ward is a different quarterback than we've had in years past. His dynamic is just completely different, and going to practices and seeing with my own eyes, like he is different than what we've seen in the past. Um, the offensive line is bulky, bigger than what this program is used to.
It's
And then
better for sure. Yes.
yeah, for sure. And there's weapons all over the field on offense. So the team really has no excuse not to put up points, especially against inferior teams week in and week out. I mean, their schedule is not tough. It's the complete opposite of UF. They have FSU, they have UF, and they have uh, Louisville. I mean, it's not a very difficult schedule. So, I mean, to not have a good year this year, there's no excuse. Mario is not on the hot seat, but he fucking should be because there's no excuse not to win at the bare minimum 9 games this year. But we'll see. I mean, I think week one will be the most important game of the season because it's going to set the tone for the rest of the year. If they come out and they drop a goose egg in Gainesville, I mean, it could just be all downhill from there. But if they come out and compete, and maybe not even win, but if they compete and they maybe put themselves in a position to win that game, I mean, it's an environment that these guys are not used to. So I don't know how they're going to come out, but I think week one will be the tell all sign if they can come out and put some work in on UF in Gainesville. I think that's very telling for a Mario led team because
Yeah.
I'm being honest, I don't know who I'm going to pick for that game right now. And on paper, yeah, I think UM is a much better team, but I can't trust them to actually put the product on the field. So I like their roster composition, but in terms of the result, it's still a wait and see for me.
Yeah. Listen, Alec, I think Trey may agree with me. I think week one might be the biggest game of Mario Cristobal's UM coaching career, right? I mean, you have this year 12 teams making the playoffs. With one loss, you might have not got in. With two, you're definitely didn't get in the past. Now, with two losses, you probably have a decent shot to get in. I think the way the schedule pans out, like Trent said, there's no excuse as to why they shouldn't win 9 games, which would give them a decent chance to make the playoff. But let's focus on just winning week one and the schedule this year. What are your honest expectations for UM, man? Alec, you're on mute, bud.
Classic.
Sorry about that. So, Trent and I, when it comes to Miami, we tend to do like a good cop, bad cop thing, as opposed to bad cop, bad
Trent's
cop.
always the back cop, man.
And so I have a little bit more of an optimistic view about the Kings this year. I think that last year they had some tough losses. They had some tough losses in the first year as well. And I was talking to Trent about this earlier. Past is the past, but you can also focus on the good wins that they had last year, the good games that they played in last year. One of them being beating Clemson. That was pretty big win for the program. They went up to Tallahassee with their quarterback out with a true freshman quarterback. They lost by 7 points. I thought it was a pretty impressive showing. So as far as and then A&M last year, big game at home. So in the big games, they do show up. And over these last couple of years, it's just been growing pains, but they should be in a position now in this third year where the team has been able to grow together. Trent's right, the roster is stacked, and there's a lot of seniors on the team. You know what I mean? As opposed to these last couple of years, you had a lot of younger guys playing. Definitely some transfers, but a lot of guys that grew with the program. Rube Bain, Wes B. I know they're transfers, but the Maui Noahs, they've been around. They've been around for a while. So, I think that this is supposed to be a turning point year, and I think they have every reason, every capability for it to be that year for them. A playoff appearance would be, the goal, absolutely, and maybe further than that. But if you're a fan of Miami, and I get a pretty good read on Miami fans, I've been around my whole life. I can't see. I know a lot of them that are happy and excited about the team, but that are also skeptical and were angry of these last couple of years. years. But if they go and they make it the playoff and they lose in the first round, yeah, you're bummed out, but I don't see how any fan is like
No, it's a win.
skeptical at that point. You know what I
Exactly,
mean?
That's a
exactly.
win. That's a win.
And that's why they brought him here. That's what they're expecting to do is at least have a shot to compete. And then if you're able to get there consistently, then you start to hope for a national championship, and that's later down the road. It could be this year. They got a great quarterback, so I think that they're going to be just fine.
Yeah, I agree. I think a massive win for UM this year would just to make the playoff, right? I mean, there's a real golden opportunity now with this 12 thing. It makes virtually every fan in college football now give you some sort of hope, right? These four teams to make it, virtually every realistic fan knew that if you weren't one of those top elite programs, you're probably not going to get in. So this is the first year where virtually you can say any decent team has a shot to make it, right? So it gives just the complexity of college football way more hope for all these fans out there, which is a lot of fun. So that's why I'm not too tuned down in terms of the Canes making the playoffs. But there's two guarantees I'm going to give you. Number one, UM is not winning a national championship. We're making it there. And number two, Mario Cristobal is not getting fired. So I will hang my hat on that. So if they make the playoff, great. I just hope I see some improvement in Cristobal's part of game management. I think that's really what a lot of fans cannot really stand. Last year was an epitome of it, but Trent, I'll give you the last word on that, man.
I mean, look, I'm not gonna get into Mario's game management. I'm not gonna look like a bigger hater than I already am. But the reason why I come off as a hater or a pessimist or bad cop, as Alec likes to refer to me as, is not because I'm a hater. It's because they have not shown me anything to be optimistic on the field.
Exactly.
I understand that last season, yes, they beat Texas A&M and M and they beat Clemson. And for Miami fans, those are big games because those are games we wouldn't normally win. I understand that, but the reality is those were not the greatest teams. Texas A&M was not that good. Clemson was a dud last season. I mean, especially it wasn't like we beat 2021 Clemson. Like Cade Klubnik is, for lack of a better word, a bum. He's on Bum Island right now. So Clemson, those wins, yes, they are big in the moment, but the reality is I don't view them as like stepping stone wins. Now the FSU game was actually very impressive because they came in, like Alex said, with a true freshman quarterback and Emory Williams. They played a fully healthy Florida State team, and they lost by 7. And they honestly had a chance to tie the game up at the end until Emory Williams got hurt and brought back in the king of Bum Island, Tyler Van Dyke. But and that was the game they lost. But to me, that was the most impressive game they played all year. So again, I want them to show me something. And I said this week 1 last year, like when we had this pod. I want them to show me something. So if they can come out and actually put on an impressive performance in Gainesville, then I will probably have a different tune come week 2 and 3 and 4. But for now, show me something. So
Yeah,
until then, I have nothing to hang my hat on.
It's a very fair statement. All right, guys. That's enough with the Florida schools. Like I said, we're going to talk about these schools all year long. We all live in Florida. I mean, I think it's pretty fair to say we should talk about these teams, right? All right, let's get to our college football top 12 predictions. Look, I think we know what 1 through 8 is probably going to be, right? So my idea is let's just get to the last 4. Well, I'll go first.
Last 4 in.
Yeah, last 4 in, right? The hot debate. There's one team that I really like this year. I think the way it aligns for them, their schedule, now that you basically, if you win your conference, you probably get in, right? This might sound a little crazy. I think Liberty has a real shot to make the playoff this year. I like what that program is. I like Caden Salter as their quarterback. I like their team, and like I said, the way their schedule pans out and the way the rules are now, and if you win, you probably win your conference, you probably get in. I say that's probably my biggest, quote unquote sleeper team to make the playoff. What do you guys think about that?
You've had much hotter takes. Joe Milton winning the Heisman was a way hotter take.
No, yeah, that was just pure talent. I love the long man, but
Liberty is I'm not gonna pick them in the my 12, but I wouldn't be shocked if they got in because I'm a big believer in Kane Salter. I think that's a pretty decent program. They have a lot of returning guys. I wouldn't be surprised. this is why they did the expansion. That's literally the whole reason why they did the expansion for a team like Liberty to get in, especially if they go undefeated. So I I don't wouldn't be surprised. I don't really think that's not how it would take.
Yeah. Alec, what do you think, man?
No, I agree. They, like Trent said, I think that they almost have to put some of these teams in because there's a lot of criticism about, the playoff takes the fun away for the rest of the teams. And if you're expanding, you're wanting to include as many people as possible. And I think that you may have a team that competed and played in a tougher conference, but maybe lost 3 games and have them get skipped over by a, what do you call it, non-power five conference winner or something like that. Maybe has 1 or 2 losses, maybe one loss. Liberty definitely could happen, man. The playoffs going to be interesting. I think that, like I said earlier, probably 2 teams at least from every conference. I think the SEC will probably get 4 teams in there, and uh, the rest is up for grabs. So
Yeah.
Tulane's another team.
Yep.
I think there's some good other teams that have a shot.
I have another team that's going to sneak in later. That is also I'll give you my Heisman pick as well, but I'll leave that to the end. But Alec, is there one team that look we all know your Georgias are going to make it, your Ohio State's going to make it, your Oregon's going to make it. All these top tier programs, 1 through 8 are probably going to make it, right? Maybe you have one upset down the road, but we know those teams. So let's just talk about the 4 maybe sleeper teams we could see getting in. And just a team that has a shot. That's what, like I said earlier, the beauty of it this year is really there's a lot more teams that can get in. There's a lot of hope for a lot of these fans. That's why now, if we're going to the alt format, Liberty has 0 shot to make the playoff. But now that we have 12 teams, it could be a little bit interesting. So, Alec, I'll give you the floor for your next team, man.
There's a couple teams honestly that come to mind. I think that like a lower tier team that you wouldn't expect to make a run, maybe in the ACC or in the Big 12, I guess is what it is now. Which, since the realignment, there's so much beef now in the SEC and Big 10 um, that there's not going to be a lot of room for other teams like this. But I think out of the Big 12, the team that I think is pretty likely to make it in, and I don't know how deep they'll be in the seeding, is Utah. I think last year they lost Cam Rising, and they were supposed
Yeah,
to have a big year last year.
we were all on the Cam Rising
Uh,
train last year.
and they still were able to put together, it was a tough season for them. He was supposed to be their guy, but he's coming back, and I think that they're going to be able to pick up where they left off. So that's a team, and then another team that I really like this year, and I'm fortunate that Florida State does not have to play them because we play them every year, is NC State out of the ACC.
Good
Um,
pick.
I think that they have Grayson McCall, who's the guy from Coastal Carolina, who's like phenomenal quarterback for them. He transferred to NC State, and they still got my boy Dave Dorn over there, head coach. I'm pretty sure,
Mhm.
and he put up a couple good fights against the Knowles. I think they've been building a solid program. NC State and Louisville are 2 teams that could maybe pop in there.
Yep. I definitely agree with both. NC State, I think, has been a little bit slept on. I think they're poised for a very good year. It's actually unfortunate that FSU doesn't play them because usually I thought they played them once a year for a
Yeah, well,
while.
since they got rid of the divisions, we used to
That's
have to
right.
play them every year. We don't anymore.
Yeah. So those are some solid picks. Trent, what about you, man?
So in no particular order, teams I could see ranked 11 through 14. One of them being Florida State. I think that obviously there are questions now with the revamped roster, but they've gotten better every year. I have no reason not to doubt Mike. I don't know if they'll be a top 10 seed, but I think that they'll be in the 11 to 14 range. Um, like Alex said, I like Utah. I think especially in the Big 12, I think the Big 12 is kind of wide open now with Oklahoma and Texas gone. Utah probably is the best team in the conference now. Um, but like I said, the Big 12 is kind of wide open. They can have a loss or two, in which case you would see them in that 11 to 14 range. I like Tennessee. Um, I think Tennessee with Nico, who's an unproven freshman quarterback, but I liked him like a lot out of high school. I thought he was better than Archie Manning. I still think that, but they have a good roster. They have really good running back. They have good receivers, good offensive line, good secondary. I think Tennessee is a team that will probably win more than people think in the SEC. Maybe not win the SEC, but I think that maybe they'll have a I don't want to say identical season to what they did a couple years ago when they were undefeated until the end. But I think they'll be a major player in the SEC this year. And my fourth team, which is probably more of a sleeper than the other three, also Big 12 because I think the Big 12 being wide open really opens the floodgates for a lot of teams. Kansas.
Hey, there you
I
go.
like
That was my
I like
team.
Kansas a lot. I picked them in me and Alex EA College Football Dynasty for a reason. Just a lot of weapons all over the place with Jalen Daniels, Devin Neal. Um, a lot of experience in the secondary. A lot of experience at receiver. That's the only problem is they have a lot of seniors. So I think if Kansas is going to have a year, this is the year. Their only issue is staying healthy. Obviously, Jalen Daniels has had some injury problems throughout the last few years. But I think if Kansas can stay healthy, um, they could be a playoff team, no doubt in my mind.
That's a great pick.
Especially in the Big 12. I think they could win the Big 12 if healthy, in my opinion. I like Kansas sneaking in there too. But there are other teams like Alex and NC State. NC State is a good team and they should be respected this year because Dorn's a good coach. They got Grayson McCall. And they will also win a lot of their ACC games this year. I don't know who they played this season. I don't know what their schedule is like, but NC State is good this year, and they are another team that could be in that playoff.
Yeah.
UTSA, that's the last thing I'm gonna say. UTSA. We've had like 2 or 3 good, like really, really good years. I think it's Roadrunner season, but that's the last one.
There is one team that a lot of people are sleeping on. I'm not going to take, prize for this pick, but I will say a team that's making noise that a lot of people can see making the playoffs or creeping in is Boise State. Um, I have to do a little more research on them, but they're getting a lot of noise for potentially creeping in just because the way it's set up. Can any of you guys speak on that and why some people are saying that?
I mean, I got a little bit of experience with Boise State. I'm playing my dynasty. They lost like 69-0 to them or something. So I think they got a good team.
So Boise State has Malachi Nelson now. He was the number one player in high school a few years back. I believe he went to USC, transferred to Boise State. I don't think he played at USC. Like his true freshman year, I don't think he ever got in because USC had Miller Moss, whatever his name is.
Yeah.
But I think Malachi Nelson, if he is what they think he is like a stud. So if that's the case, and Boise's in not MAC, what conference are they in? Mountain West. They're in the Mountain West. I mean, they can go
Boise's
undefeated
Mountain
in the
West.
Mountain West. They'll probably make the playoff.
Yeah, I
Exactly.
think they're in the Big 12 now, are they not?
Are they in Big 12 now?
I think they're still in the Mountain West. Maybe Alex right.
Yeah, Mountain West, you're right.
All right. So, I mean, look, again, like we said, the whole point of this 12-team playoff is to get the small conference teams or small conference champ teams in, especially if they're undefeated. So, I mean, it's not inconceivable that Boise State with Malachi Nelson goes undefeated in the Mountain West. They'll probably be in if that's the case.
Yep. One team that's pretty interesting. I want to see it this year, one more year. But they could make some noise, obviously, in the SEC, and that's Missouri. They have a good coach, a very good program. I was pleasantly surprised how good they were last year. I want to see it this year. They're ranked number 12, I believe. But what do you guys think of Missouri, real quick?
Yeah, well, that was actually a good pick because
Yeah.
I think that they would be one. They have a chance to be one of those fringe SEC teams. Yeah, they've had a solid couple of years. A couple years ago, they almost beat Georgia. They had a rough game against UF last year, which was kind of inexcusable. I don't know. They finished the season out, but they got a solid program, and I think they definitely got a shot.
Yeah.
Missouri's nasty. Like Missouri's actually nasty. They have probably the best receiver in college football, and Luther Burden.
Really? Okay.
Theo Weiss is their next receiver. He's a monster too. He's from Oklahoma. So Missouri's going to be good this year. Like they are actually projected to finish pretty high in the SEC. Obviously, it's all the SEC runs through Georgia, but I don't think Missouri is going to mess around this year. Missouri,
Yeah.
I think, has or right now is a favorite to be to make the playoff, like
Yeah.
top 10 spot.
All right. I'm gonna give you guys a pretty big take because I genuinely believe this. I think this year there's a real shot Alabama will not make the playoff. I'm not sold on Milroe. I think DeBoer is a very good coach. Obviously, what he did with Washington last year, I think nobody saw that coming, right? Just to make the playoff in itself. We all knew Penix was good, but no one thought they'd have this year. I think losing a coach like Saban is a big loss. We had a couple key transfers. Um, let's see if Milroe is the real deal or not. Big year for Alabama. Do any of you guys think they're going to make the playoff this year?
I think they have a chance.
Yeah, of course they have a chance.
I
Yeah,
think they have a
sure.
chance to miss it too. No, you're not wrong, man. Talk about big shoes to fill. Obviously, there's nowhere to go for Alabama but down. It's just the way it is. So, is this guy going to come in and be Nick Saban? Highly unlikely. I'm not saying he's not a good coach,
To be
but
fair, I don't think there's ever going to be a Nick Saban again. I mean, the guy,
exactly. That's what I'm
yeah,
saying. Like and it's there's a reason why a couple of coaches passed on the job. I think one of them being Mike Norvell, of course, and that's because the shoes you have to fill, the spotlight, there's no winning situation unless you go and you win a national championship in your
yeah,
first like 2
yep,
years. And can he do that? I think he built a great program or did inherited a great program, but got them competing again in Washington and but I don't think it's that out of left field to say, okay, maybe they don't make the playoff.
yep,
But they still have the same team, the same recruits, but a lot of guys jump ship too, man.
yeah. Um,
Uh, I'm
go ahead.
gonna I'm gonna completely flip the script on you. I think Bama's going to be a top 4 seed in the playoff.
Okay, I
Uh,
mean that's not a crazy take. I mean they're
I,
Alabama, dude.
I think that they're still extremely talented. I have no reason to believe that DeBoer won't. Obviously, he's not Saban, but I really respect DeBoer.
I
He's
agree.
been
I agree.
fantastic everywhere he's been, and now he has the most talented roster he's ever had. Um, they're so big in the trenches. They have a bunch of weapons all around Milroe. Obviously, there's still question marks around Milroe, but he has still shown that he's good enough to get to the playoff. Um, I mean, and then when you look at just the kind of the college football landscape in terms of top 4 teams, I mean, yes, I think Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon are their bona fide top 3 teams. I'd be shocked if those 3 teams are not in the top 4. But then you look at Texas, you look at Ole Miss, Notre Dame, Penn State. I mean, is Alabama not as good as those teams? I mean, I think they're better than those teams. I still think Alabama is better than Texas. Um, they especially now since they lost their running backs. I mean, I think Alabama right now to me is the 4th best team.
Yeah, I mean it's not a crazy take at all. I mean I can't disagree with you. Uh, it's definitely fair to say I think DeBoer is a very good hire. I think he's a very safe coach. I think you know what you're getting with DeBoer. I think he's going to do a tremendous job there. I think he's going to be there for the next decade. I don't think I think it's a very good hire. But I want to touch on one other team before we move on to our championship prediction here. Simply because they won the national championship last year, there's a lot of noise surrounding this team of what happened with Harbaugh. Who cares? He's never coming back to the college again. Um, do you think Michigan is still good enough to make the playoff with this roster and the new coach they got? Alec, I'll start with you first, man.
Yeah, just like Trump was saying with Alabama, it's a matter of talent. Um, Harbaugh was a great coach though, so it's going to be tough. But he wasn't a great coach for a long time. I mean, he was, but he wasn't the elite. And it's unfortunate. He jumped ship, and these fans are kind of dealing similarly with like an Alabama situation where, there's nowhere really to go, and it's hard to expect that they would be back in the national championship. They're getting hit with sanctions and whatnot, and I think that their time is past. If I get, I hope they prove me wrong, but I'm not really. I think that they could win 10 games this year, and they're still Michigan, but I don't know if they're going to be like they're not going to be the Michigan of the
Hmm.
past.
Yeah. Trent?
Yeah, I don't. I just agree. They're a completely different team now. One, including the sanctions. Two, they had some guys leave. Their only shining star right now is Donovan Edwards, who I think is just a
Is a
really good.
stud.
He's an NFL running back, obviously, but the Big Ten is now different than what it was last year. Like, not only do they have to play Ohio State again, they got to play Texas, they got to play USC, they got to play Oregon, and like I would not be shocked if Michigan does not make the playoff this year. Looking at their schedule, my money would say they don't make the playoff.
Mhm.
Big Ten's different than the years past, last year, but I just with their returning roster, no Harbaugh, I don't view them as that elite next level team in the Big Ten right now, especially considering they got to go against Oregon, Texas, and Ohio State in the same season. So I don't think they make the playoff this year.
Yeah. Let me ask you guys, before we move on to our next championship pick, is there one big coach that you see being fired this year I wouldn't call him a big coach, but for the exception of Billy Napier and the Arkansas coach, is there one coach that people may not see coming that you guys could see being fired?
Yeah.
I think I know what you're going to say, and I probably agree with you.
No, I'm not going to say Lincoln Riley.
That's my answer. I think he's gone, man.
Uh,
I,
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 I think that he could get fired, but I think he would just leave. I
I
don't know.
think he's leaving for the NFL after this year.
But I think that the guy who would be the big shock, big boom fire is James Franklin.
Really? I don't think that's that crazy. Because
Or
he
he
said
leaves as well, same thing. Like maybe he leaves for like a DC job or something
you're
in
you're
that.
you're you're on to something because look, he had the excuse of look, we can't be one of the best four teams. We have an unfair path. We're in the SEC. That is over. That excuse is gone. You got to win now, man. He's been there long enough. I know how you feel about James Franklin. You've made your comments and well known over the years. That is a very good take. I like that. Trent, what do you think of that one?
Um, I think the obvious one is Lincoln Riley. I think that's to me he should get fired if they don't fail to meet expectations again. But I think that goes without being said. I think Franklin actually is an interesting pick because I think we've talked about this on the pods before. He's a consistent 10-win season, guy. He just will never win that big game. And I mean, what's the alternative? Do you hire, when you hire somebody else, are you going to get better? I mean, it's a very small margin of error. So that's a difficult decision for Penn State. My maybe hot take, maybe not so hot take, is Ryan Day at Ohio State. I think
Yeah,
Like
I
that.
think if
that was my answer. Yeah.
Ohio State loses to Michigan this year, I don't think he will survive. There's no way he survives another loss to Michigan, especially in that program.
Especially
And
with
how much
everything that's left. I agree.
it's been what 3 years since
5 years,
he's
five. I think
Michigan.
it's five. Pretty sure it's five.
No, they haven't. It hasn't been five straight for Michigan.
This
No way.
this year this year would be the fifth, I believe. I think they lost the last.
Whatever. It's at least
Whatever it
three.
is,
It's
it's
at,
been a
it's at
while.
least three. It's at least three. And I mean, and now considering what Michigan is pretty depleted, and I don't know if the game. I think the game is in. I think it's in Columbus this year. I think.
Yeah, it is.
Uh,
Last year they played in Michigan, so yeah,
yeah.
it's in
So I
Columbus.
mean, that is a must. They could be undefeated at that point. If they lose to Michigan, he's going to get fired. At least in my eyes, he has to get fired. That's not a program that takes losses to Michigan lightly. And considering how good Ohio State has been the last 2 years, it's not like they had bad teams. Like Ohio State has been a playoff team the last 2 years, but they're consistently losing to Michigan. They can't let it happen again. They need to be a top three team again this year and beat Michigan. But I think he's on a semi hot seat. So I mean, I don't want to rule out Ryan Day getting fired.
Yeah, one coach I can see being fired. It's funny because 2 years ago we praised him for how great of a program he's running. Is Dave Aranda from Baylor?
Oh,
I think what's happened to
that's
him the
horrible.
last 2 years has been pretty
Yeah.
crazy, man. He went from the highs of the high to the lows of the lows. I do think Baylor's gonna have a better year, but I think this is the year he's got to start winning or he's gonna get the can, man.
Yeah, all those other Big 12 teams, they have a shot now. Texas is gone. I guess Oklahoma too. But
Mhm.
just like the thing about, I want to just one more thing about Franklin is he was able to win those 10 games a year and lose two, and the losses were Ohio State and Michigan every year. Now they have to play Oregon. Now they have to play Washington. Now they have to play USC. Now they have to play all these teams, UCLA. And it's it, I think he's just going to lose more games this year. And then you're going to look at it like, okay, this is our future. Maybe we make a move because we have a program, we have the talent, everything built, facilities, and I don't think he's the guy in today's landscape.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm sorry, one more thing about Ryan Day. I think that they're not going to win the Natty. That's all I can guarantee. I could see them being a top three team, and I could see them going to the national championship. They're so ridiculously talented. Like,
That is an unbelievably talented roster.
Some people say, I'm
so
not kidding when I say this. Some people say it's the most loaded Ohio State roster ever, for the exception of the quarterback. And he's
Oh, Will Howard is disgusting. Even their quarterback is disgusting.
well, I shouldn't
Uh,
say that. No one knows if he's going to be great or not in college. He's a big question mark.
I think he's going to be great. He was
Okay.
great at Kansas State. He'll be great at Ohio State. They got Quinshon Judkins now. Judkins is the top 2 or 3 running back in the country. They got Travion Henderson backing him up. He's a top 10 running back in the country. I mean, they are just at they got what's his name from Alabama? Caleb Downs, one of the best DBs in college football, and he's a sophomore. I mean, they are so incredibly loaded. To be honest, if they don't win a national championship, it's a failure because of
Yeah,
how they are the most loaded team in
they
college
are
football.
insanely nasty. I agree.
And that is another that adds to the hot seat of Ryan Day. I mean, there is no excuse not to win it all this year with that Ohio State team.
Agreed. All right. We're gonna make our national championship. What's the championship game? Who's gonna win? And after that, we're gonna choose our Heisman, and we'll call it a day here. Alec, I'll give you first dibs, man. Go ahead. What's your national
mm,
championship, and who's your winner?
well, I'm pretty torn between I don't have any surprise pick this year, I'll be honest with you.
I don't think I
It's
do
a
either.
really strong argument for Georgia. Obviously, they didn't make the playoff last year. They have a chip on their shoulder. They're a lot of the team is coming back. They're preseason number one.
They got the safest quarterback in college football, right? You know what you're getting
They're
from
gonna
them.
have to play. I don't know exactly what their schedule looks like, but they're gonna have a tougher schedule than they've had in the last 2 years in the cupcake schedules. So that'll be interesting. But I think they're definitely one of the best teams. My pick for the champion is Oregon Ducks.
There you go. That was my pick.
I just think that
This is the year of Dalen Gabriel,
they
man.
they they made a brutal they had a brutal loss last year to Washington where they were winning the game, they're dominating the entire game, and Dan Lanning, it must have been the ghost of Mario Cristobal at Oregon taking over. Dan Lanning was winning, and it was 4th and 4 on the 50-yard line, and they could have punted the ball, and he went for it, and they got stuffed, and they gave up a touchdown, and they lost the game.
Well, let's be fair. Michael Penix was unbelievable in that game too.
Yeah, well, it
Yeah,
was a
that was
shootout,
like
but they were winning the game. Look, the point is because of that, Washington got the edge in getting into the playoff. And I guess they lost them again in their conference championship. I don't know exactly what happened. But Washington's not going to be that team anymore, and I think it's another year. And they filled the Bo Nix void with Dylan Gabriel, who I think is, if not the same level quarterback, Bo had a great year last year, but I think it's the system, and I think DG will be able to have a similar year. Uh, I think that program-wise, coaching, they recruited well, they got the money from Phil Knight. Like, this is their year. It's a lot of teams' years in their minds, but I think that this is Oregon's year to go out there and just run the table
Yeah.
and win it all.
I'm going to piggyback off that. Oregon was my pick to win it all, I think, simply because Dalen Gabriel. I think Bo Nix had an unbelievable year last year, and I think he's better than Bo Nix. And you slide him right into what you have with Dan Lanning. I think that offense is going to be virtually unstoppable. To me, they're going to win it all, and they're going to go against Ohio State, and I think they're going to lose to Ohio, or I think Oregon's going to beat Ohio State. I don't see under any scenario how Ohio State doesn't get in. I just think they're so loaded. Like I said, For me, the only question they have is quarterback, but I think he's going to prove a lot of people wrong. I think they're going to make it in. I think this is the year for Ryan Day to get in the playoff, or not get in the playoff, but get to the championship. I think Oregon's going to do it. I think they're going to win. So I'm with you, Alec. I agree on that pick. So Trent, are you going to join us or?
I'm stuck because Georgia, yes, Georgia's won. I am at a crossroads between Ohio State and Oregon, and that's a combination. It's a reason. It's the reason I say it is because I think Ohio State is the better team. I think better roster. Ohio State's a better roster, but I have no faith in Ryan Day. And at the same time, Oregon is better coached, but I am just not entirely sold on Dylan Gabriel. I don't know what it is. I think that he is a good quarterback, but to me, I'm just not sold on him being that elite caliber quarterback. With that being said, I'm going to go UGA Ohio State because I think Will Howard is better than Dylan Gabriel at this point in time. I just think Will Howard is more equipped to succeed than Dylan Gabriel. And I'm going to pick Georgia. And I hate that because that's not a juicy pick and it's not.
I mean, we can't really say you're wrong. I mean,
it's the way that it goes. So I like Georgia versus Ohio State, and I like Georgia to win it all. I think Carson Beck is probably the best quarterback in the class. Debatable, but I do think that he's better than Dylan Gabriel, and I think honestly he's better than Will Howard too. And I just think Georgia's too damn good, man. And like going back to last year, just as FSU had an argument, they got robbed. So did Georgia. Georgia was just as good as any team in that playoff, and they didn't make it.
You can make a case they won the national championship last year. I don't
absolutely won the national championship last year. They just happened to lose
the last game of the season.
Their last game to Bama. So I still like Georgia. I think Georgia's just too good. And if Dan Lanning was at Ohio State, I'd pick Ohio State to win it all. But they have that bum with the beard that doesn't know how to coach and win big games. So I'm gonna go with Georgia.
Yeah, ever since he called out that sweet man Lou Holtz, he's been on my.
Lou Holtz is not a sweet man, and he's an idiot. But yeah, he shouldn't have done.
Yeah, look, Trent, you're not wrong. A lot of mock drafts have Carson Beck being the number 1 overall pick next year. So I mean, it's we'll see. All great picks. I mean, I can't really say that's a bad pick. I mean, Georgia could win it all. So for me, I just don't see how Ohio State doesn't get there this year. I think we all agree that they're going to make the championship. That roster is absolutely loaded. I'm a big believer in Dylan Gabriel. I think he's going to get it done for them. I think he's going to take them all the way and win it all. Because Dan Lanning has a very good defense, and that offense was so good last year. That was my question with them. And you slide Dylan Gabriel right in that offense, who's better than Bo Nix, in my opinion. So that's why I think they're going to win it all. All right, guys. I want you to give me your runner-up for Heisman and then your Heisman winner. If you want, I can go first.
Sure, good.
You got it.
All right, my runner-up is Dylan Gabriel. I think he's gonna have a phenomenal season this year. I'm all in on Dylan Gabriel. I think he's gonna do a lot of things this year. This is a very hot take. I did this last year, right? I think they are poised to make the playoff. I think they're poised to make a deep run. Would not surprise me if they get to the Final Four at some point. My Heisman winner this year, if he stays healthy, there's a caveat, is Jalen Daniels. I think
you take my take. God damn it.
I think he's gonna win the Heisman. I think he's that good.
I wanted to juice that pick up.
Damn. Well, I'm glad you agree though, man.
Yeah, I mean, I think the main thing with that is health. And I'm not necessarily saying that Jalen Daniels will win the Heisman, but I mean, considering that I don't even see his odds on the odds list,
it's insane.
It's unbelievable. I think if he stays healthy in the Big 12, the sky is the limit. I just think that he has an opportunity to put up bigger numbers than these other guys in these big conferences.
That's exactly
So
right. Yeah.
I like Jalen Daniels because if they can win and he can have crazy numbers like what we used to see in mobile quarterbacks, it's very possible. And in terms of runner up, I'm kind of in between either Gabriel Beck or Will Howard. I'm going to lean Beck just because they're going to be undefeated more than likely,
Yeah.
and that carries a lot of weight in the Heisman voting. So I'm going to go Beck.
And I do have one more sleeper for you. I'm not saying he's going to win it. I would not be surprised if he's in that room the final week. I think Jackson Dart has a real shot to win the Heisman. I'm not saying he's going to do it, but I could definitely see him being one of the top 4 guys in that room.
Also, I want to also be very clear. If this guy was on another team, I'd say that he'd be in the room. Cam Ward. If he was on
Really?
any other team,
Really? Okay.
I would say Cam Ward. I don't trust Mario Cristobal by the slightest, so I cannot put Cam Ward in that room in New York. But if Cam Ward was on a, you know, Ole Miss with Lane, Cam Ward is a top 2 Heisman candidate in my opinion, but not with Mario Cristobal steering the ship. So
All right, Alec. Well, the floor is yours, man. Can you top what we did?
Well, it's gonna be tough because I thought you guys were picking 2. You guys listed like 10 guys, so I gotta.
I said 3 guys, bro.
But luckily you didn't cross paths with me. So runner up, and we didn't get to talk about this, but anyway, runner up, the team that he plays for, I think has a good shot of being like a top 5 team this year, and that's going to be Riley Leonard at Notre Dame.
Very good pick.
Uh, and I think that Notre Dame's going to be a legitimate ass team this year. I think that Riley Leonard is like
Very good. Yes.
talented, raw, talented quarterback. And
He was supposed to be a first round pick last year, and then he got
he was
hurt.
phenomenal for Duke. I mean, obviously, when we played Duke, he got hurt, and that was huge for us because it was hard stuff for him. So I think he's going to have a great year, similar to our boy Hartman.
Sam Hartman,
Hartman.
yeah.
Yeah. Last year had a great year. So I think Leonard is going to be my runner up, and the winner is the national champion, Dylan Gabriel.
There you go, man.
Also, I lied. Jalen Daniels, I am now seeing him on the odds list. He is plus 3,000 to win the Heisman.
I am definitely putting some money on that for sure. Obviously. I'm surprised that not one of you guys took Win Ewers. I thought one of you for sure would say you would not buying it.
I like Ewers.
He'll be a finalist.
Yeah, I like Ewers. I just don't think.
I don't know why Texas isn't one of these teams. They made the playoff last year. I don't really know why I don't have my eye on them as much.
Yeah.
But I think
they lost their running backs.
There is one guy on this list that I'm actually surprised to see here. Maybe you guys can see why. As I'm looking at the odds here, but that's the Arizona quarterback, Noah Fifita.
He's good. He's a beast.
I know
he has what's the receiver? Is it McMillan, the receiver for Arizona?
I know that their coach left for Washington, so I thought that whole team was a demise. But
yeah. His receiver he's got a top 5 receiver in the country. McMillan, he's a monster, dude. He pondered the transfer portal, and he would have been the hottest name in the portal if he entered. He ended up returning to Arizona. He had 1,400 yards last year. So he's good, and Fafita is also good. So I mean, Arizona is ranked. I mean, what's Arizona ranked right now? They're 21.
top 20.
And that's another Big 12 team that can win the Big 12. So yeah, I think he's kind of a sleeper pick. I don't know if he'll be in that room, but he's got some guys around him for sure.
Yeah. All right, go ahead.
Travis Hunter, finally.
No. Colorado's not going to win.
I would love to talk about Colorado. We don't have the time. We'll definitely do it next week. We're definitely going to get our Colorado takes in. But with that said, guys, I'm glad football season's right around the corner again. I'm glad we're back. For the people listening at home, thanks for watching and listening. We'll be doing this once a week, and then maybe later on in the year we'll try to do twice when the bigger games happen. But I think I speak for all of us, man. Football season is back, and we cannot wait.
Last week without college football until the end of January.
That's insane, man. I thought I'd never see the day. So, all right, guys. Well, good stuff. And to everyone home, thanks for listening. And again, we are partnering with Five Reasons Sports. Big thank you for Ethan for letting us do this, and appreciate it.